Evangelist at Global Tour. We have Jason coming in from Taiwan. Congressman Jason Su, welcome.
Hi, I apologize for a little bit of technical difficulty here. As I was saying, getting online is more difficult than winning an Oscar with this browser I'm trying to fix.
Yeah, it is. But we have you here, and so I'm going to turn the stage to you, and you'll have the good half of, I would say, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. Questions may be coming in, but I want to just hand it over to you, Congressman Jason Su. Maybe you can start off with a bit of a self-introduction, and then the floor is yours. You're going to be talking about COVID-19, the technology response, cybersecurity, and your experience working as a legislator in Taiwan. So with
Sure.
that,
Jonathan, before I dive in, can you make sure you see my slides on the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, how about when I switch? Is it? Do you see the?
Yes, it works perfectly. Yes. So, Congressman Jason Su, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Jonathan and Claire, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be back virtually. I joined the first edition of Tokyo Summit last year when I spoke about Taiwan's efforts in combating fake news and cybersecurity, and as well as building Taiwan as a cybersecurity hub. I've officially stepped down on January 31st as a member of parliament. My current role, among many others that I serve, is the senior advisor for a global think tank specialized in cybersecurity, 5G technology, AI. It's called Center for Strategic Cyberspace and International Studies, CSIS. It's a think tank based in London, UK, with the global experts in looking at cybersecurity and how cybersecurity is affecting the global stage. You might wonder why cybersecurity is an important topic in this period of COVID-19, and actually, the government or the states are disseminating a lot of information and misinformation with the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's worthwhile looking into some of the potential implementations of what cybersecurity what role cybersecurity plays in a time like this. But first of all, let me begin by sharing a little bit about myself. So I serve as a member of a legislature from 2016 to 2020. My focus is in technology, innovation, cybersecurity, AI, and all things technology related. And for the last 4 years, I have worked on AI, autonomous vehicle, cybersecurity. Again. So just really quickly dive into the COVID-19. So far, we have over 2 million confirmed cases, with countries like US over close to 1 million confirmed COVID-19 cases, trailing by Spain, Italy, France, Germany, UK, Turkey, Iran, and etc. And remarkably, Taiwan is now very below, and it's actually only has a total death of six deaths, and with less than 500 people. And we've had reported a consecutive 4 days of 0 cases. So it's been a quite remarkable battle that we are waging against the COVID-19 pandemics. And let's look at a few things how we address these issues. Number one is information transparency. Our government holds daily press conference to keep the public updated about the pandemic. So every day we get quite a update briefing. And secondly, we have cross-industry collaboration. Our government coordinated different industries to boost daily mass production from 1.8 million to 15 million. So every week we have over 100 million masks produced, and we sent some of those masks overseas for the humanitarian aid as well. And for the citizenship, citizens strictly follow the guidelines for social distancing and fast masks rationing. And agile experience. Early on we employ a agile border control, and which means that as early as late January, actually, I would say the first week of February, we already employ a border control. So which means that we are quite early on in controlling the traffic and the travel flow. Open data, governments work cohesively with public-private sector in collaborating with the IT community, utilizing open data to keep people informed, and also the mask inventories at real time. And we actually assemble what we call the National Face Mask Team. We collaborated with 34 local mask manufacturers and companies and machine tool companies to set up national mask team in early February. And we now have 92 mask production lines were set up within a short span of 40 days, much shorter than the original estimate of 180 days. Today, our production outputs increased from 1 million to 13 million so far, and making Taiwan the second largest country to make mask productions in the world. So that's quite remarkable. And this is a map I'd like to show, which is actually a real-time map that we monitor and take the inventory of the mask distribution. And you see the red dots or the red triangles. It is the area, the pharmacies that we distributed masks, and it also shows the amount of inventory and masks that we have on hand, and also it changes in real time to show how we address and deal with this situation. And then the next, I will talk about big data and technology. In single day, Taiwan's government were able to combine data from NHS and the immigration agency to identify patients' 14-day travel history. And also, we effectively monitor citizens' household registration systems and foreigners' entry cards. Individuals at high risks were identified, self-quarantine and monitored through their cell phone. Low-risk passengers could scan a QR code prior to departure and arrival to complete a health declaration from the allowing expedited immigration declarants. So that means that we are quite in sync with all this technology. And public warning for cell broadcast service. We have a what we call a cell broadcast entity, which means that people within a certain radius of distance, if there's someone who is affected and who is found traveling or going around in a certain area, and government will send monitoring tests, it almost like an emergency phone text message on your phone and saying there's someone in this area that has potential risks in your area, and you should protect yourself. And it would also send any type of contingency measures that needed to be taken at the time. One of the big issues facing pandemic is the what we call the infodemic, which is basically information being deployed or distributed at this time. As you know, this is a particularly emotionally challenging times for our mankind. And we as human beings and as a society are going through a turmoil and almost a test for our own solidarity. But there are agents or actors or people with malicious intentions spreading out misinformation, which is as bad as the COVID-19 pandemic, because you see, most of us are safe and healthy, but we are locked down in our house, and we have nowhere but search for information online. And the information we read and watch does affect our mental state and our physical health. So to counter that issue, Taiwan Fact Check Center also employs a quite extensive and wide search mechanism to make sure that any type of misinformation or fake news or some fake data were debunked and were discovered right away. And then you can see in a single week, these are the type of fake news that came out and surfaced. And as you can see on April 18th, just a few days ago, a video shows that Italian people knelt to pray to God for help and repented for their sin during COVID-19 outbreak. And also you have like something like even very bad like this. April 13th, a video shows a man got slapped in the behind by police with a bat due to violation of the quarantine rules, and etc. So, something like this, it's quite alarming, as we are confined in our own households, and the information we are spreading can be as toxic and harmful as the virus that we are trying to avoid. And then not only we are combating this COVID-19 pandemic on the healthcare front, we are also fighting it on the information front. And we are also trying to fix what we could do after this. And we put together a platform called Health for All, and which is essentially an alliance calling for startups, tech companies, government agencies to work together to help solve the pandemic issues. This pandemic will not disappear. It will only come back as we go, and it might mutate over time. So we as human beings must adapt, and we must evolve with our tools on hand. That is our technology. And I believe that bad times good inventions come out of bad times. In 2000, when dot-com bubble burst, Google was born. In 2008, when the subprime mortgage financial crisis was sweeping the world, that gives the rise of sharing economy, and we have now some of the great sharing companies. So on this platform, you can see we organize a place that all the startups can come and then share their technology. And essentially, this is to show to the countries and the cities whenever they need support. These are the companies you can reach out to. So we have NDC Taiwan, Hujia Health Life, and Pro, Studio One Labs, iWe Care, Penguin Smart, and all these companies are all from Taiwan, and they are making, ventilators, negative pressure chambers, and masks, and using AI to solve the pandemic issues. And I'll just give a couple of examples. This company is called Heroic Faith. They are the company that are developing a AI model, which is basically to be used for doctors to detect early respiratory syndrome disorder. As you know, the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic collapse your lung, and it affects your internal organ, and it can be actually detected from early on with the respiratory breathing disorder. So this is a way also to show to the world that we can detect this early on. And this is from Taiwan, and we are happy to share with the world. And this is powered by AI algorithm. And secondly, this is also, I think, before we have vaccine, we have to do everything to prevent the virus spread and the transmission. And this is also a method that a Taiwanese biotech startup collaborating with the Danish company. The company is called Blue Sense Diagnostics, and it takes a small drop of blood, and it would allow the patient to detect whether you have been affected with the coronavirus within 12 seconds. And so we're happy also to kind of share with the world for this new invention. And since we're talking about cybersecurity, and you can see it's pretty scary in the way in the last 90 days, the amount of information that's spread online and that requires a certain level of fact checks just skyrocketed. So you can tell from January, it's less than 200, and all the way till March, over 1,200 fact checks are being conducted. And who's spreading these fact checks, and how are they spreading, and in what form are they spreading? You can tell that some 29% is misleading content, and 24% is false context. 6% is manipulated content. 30% is fabricated content, and then others. So you can see this is a particularly vulnerable time. People take what they know and they, mix with other inauthentic information, and they spread it around. And that's damaging, and that's very bad for the general public, because that create a certain emotional anxiety that people are quite worried, and it is also creating a lot of unnecessary despair in our society. And who is spreading this misinformation? So you can tell 69% are bottom up. They are actually from the social media. And like I said, everyone is now online, and they are trying to share what they read, what they see among their friends, and also among their social network. And we have to be extra careful in the information that we feed ourselves, and also that we read and share. And this could potentially go on and linger on long after the pandemic is over. And what I fear is that after in the post COVID-19, we will struck by a emotional meltdown, and this emotional meltdown is very much caused by the amount of fake information or misinformation that is being spread during this time. So all of us must exercise intelligence and caution, and also good conscience at this particular time. I think we are really now at a juncture in history where going forward, COVID-19 changes everything. The world is changed. And what we are seeing for the future is uncertainty, unpredictability, and no normalcy. So how do we interpret all of this? How do we understand where we are right now and envision a future where we can collaborate and relate to each other? And this would come back. And when it comes back, I hope we stand in test of this negative thing that kind of is part of our human nature. And 5 issues that coronavirus lays in front of us. Number 1 is China's censorship. You know, it's no doubt that this coronavirus stems from China. The first case was reported in Wuhan. China reportedly is the world's most censored country in the world. Everywhere you go, every street corner you turn, there's a CCTV camera and there's a facial recognition. And they conduct a social credit score to monitor every citizen. And so are we stepping into a big brother era where we are subjected to government's monitoring, even after the pandemic emergency era? And is China's censorship model right? And should we be questioning how we are monitored and censored? Will we go so far as one day that we will be implanted with a microchip in our body so we can all be measured for biometrics, that we can detect a host of a virus? And all of the things, it's something quite worrying to me, as it's a challenge to our democracy, it's a challenge to our system, and it's a challenge to our social and political system. Number 2, disinformation online isn't just speech. It's also a matter of health and safety. As I stressed in the previous slides, that we are fighting this war on many fronts. It's not just the healthcare fronts. It's also on our emotional level. It's on our mental health level. We all share responsibility to defeat this with our own right and with our own tools on hand, which is fact-checking and also spreading the right message. Cyber resiliency and security matter more than ever. As you see, countries, particularly rock countries at this time, are particularly dangerous, as they would take advantage of the countries that are under attack by virus. And you never know the form and the shape and the origin of such virus. It could start out as some sort of biochemical leak from a lab, or it could be contracted from an animal or things like that. But it is very easily used as a weapon to underthrow and sabotage and undermine the countries. So we must be very, very careful. Smart technology as a lifeline, um, that is no doubt. And I want to stress the last point. Tech supply chain is a point of vulnerability. You can see Taiwan at this time. We had an early this discussion, and we are very happy that we consolidate our production and supply chain very quickly, and America is also reflecting on its own manufacturing industry. I think if you read a report, a blog post by Andreessen Horowitz, he says it's time to build, and it is really the time to rethink manufacturing. It is time to build. It's time to reassess that every single dollar spent from taxpayers' money is being put into building things. This being put into building smart machinery, smart urban infrastructure, smart healthcare, smart manufacturing. And this type of things are very important as countries in the future can no longer rely on China to become the world factory. And when China stops because of something like virus, the world also stop to function. So we must diversify and we must rebuild our tech supply chain. Um, and a post-coronavirus world, totalitarian surveillance or citizen empowerment. I think you can see Taiwan as a very good model of balance a government control or government enhanced system and bottom up citizen empowered movement. This is essentially an issue of trust. Citizens must be able to trust government, and government must be able to enlist citizens' support in a time like this, and to know that this is not a matter of monitoring, controlling citizens, but it is actually we stand together to work to fight this together. A lot of people argue that this COVID-19 would essentially lead to deglobalization, or as I wrote here, nationalist isolation. I, this would be quite a bad thing to go back to. As you know, this will give rise to totalitarianism and global recession, and also I think this would slow down everything. And I would still like to call for a global solidarity and working together with a group like this at this time, that we all come together and still with things that we care in mind, and working to solve the issues and putting everything we can together. So I think that is no way that we will retrench to isolationism, and so we all should work together and build a stronger globe and a safer planet. Gig economy, I think this for sure. I tell you, and this is linked to unemployment. Government will deal with a large wave of unemployment. Taiwan is very lucky. We are so far in unemployment rate is still very low. It's about 2%. Inequality, this would obviously increase the gap between rich and poor. This is time to rethink how we think about tax, how we think about public infrastructure, how we think about everything. For example, higher education. It is nonsense that U.S. higher education is charging an astronomical amount of tuition fees, where everyone can literally can study online. Post-privacy, what does privacy mean to you? I think in this forum, we talk about cybersecurity. It's also a self-awareness of our own data protection. can we own our data and validate it when it's needed to? Can we live free from the state tracking? And are we able to exercise the right of a citizen to provide support in the time of crisis? Post-privacy does require a support from tech community to come together. I think I would foresee and predict more tech companies working on privacy-enabled apps, whether it's a messenger-like or encrypted social media platform or a end-to-end encryption communicator. Data sovereignty, which I touch upon, cybersecurity, and etc. And lastly, I just wanted to kind of share with you all about the role of Taiwan and what we are here to offer. And as you see, Taiwan is a very small country with a 23 million population. And but at this time, I think we've demonstrated a good model that all our citizens and the private public sector can work together and build things. And at this time, I think we have a very strong manufacturing that we would like to work with everyone, and our tech community is ready to support everyone, countries, cities that are needed. And the platform that I started called Health for All, where it's a platform for all healthcare startups to share their knowledge and provide support for those who are in need, are there to be used. So feel free to contact me, and let's work together to fight this coronavirus. And I'm sure we will emerge even stronger, more resilient as citizens and as a global village. So let's all work together. Thank you very much. I will stop here and maybe take a couple of questions if I can. Thank you.
As we wait for questions, people like your presentation, Jason, so that's good.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it was very informative.
Here the slides and some of the data that I collected for everyone, and also let me share a link for the Health for All. It's a platform that I built for all the startups to work together, and right now there are over 19 startups are joining.
Okay.
Posted. Where should I post it? I just posted it.
What kind of startups are in this ecosystem, Jason?
AI, medical device, hospitals that are working on open source ventilator, and also companies that are building coronavirus solutions.
Okay.
I posted the link to the post backstage, so maybe Claire can share it to the chat room on the public.
Yeah, we'll make sure. Yeah, we'll make sure everybody has it. We'll drop it here on the public chat room. So we'll do that. Yeah, sounds good. So tell me a little bit about that. Is it like an incubator where you're investing and taking an equity position in a company that's looking to expand into Taiwan, or how does that work? Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, essentially, I believe this COVID-19 is a game changer, and I believe that we need to rethink how we invest and how our startups are working to solve problems. And so, particularly this initiative I'm creating will essentially lead to a fund and a accelerator. Is that we are looking at companies that are building solutions that will impact global problems on a global level. And so we are enlisting support from everyone, that people coming together, VCs, investors, companies, governments, and etc. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. That was good. That's interesting. That's new to me. Fascinating. Thank you for that information, Jason. Oh.
Yeah, so I'm happy to work with you, Jonathan, or anyone in this group that who might be interested in working together. So far, we have 19 companies already, and some of them we are helping them to fast track to the U.S. FDA to deploy their products and services to the U.S.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is not necessarily Taiwan focused. You're talking about solving and getting involved with global problems. We're not just looking at just Taiwan, right?
No, just this is a global focus. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, there you have it. That's fantastic. I want to go back a little bit. You were known as a crypto congressman. For those that don't know, where does that come from, and what was your role in cryptocurrency and blockchain in Taiwan? Because that's a very interesting conversation. I don't think we had the chance to really go into that.
Yeah, so I started out, really working on crypto in September 2017 when China banned ICO, and that was during the time that a lot of companies leaving China and trying to look for a new jurisdiction. At the time I was in the parliament, I openly called for our prime minister to support this industry and also to welcome all startups to come to Taiwan. And later on, Vitalik Buterin, who is a co-founder of Ethereum, picked up this news, and then he started to calling me crypto congressman on all the media, and then he started to share with me information and also knowledge that he knows about this industry and essentially about blockchain. And I start working on developing progressive legislation on blockchain and crypto, and forming industry groups, and as well as governmental and legislators groups to advance this agenda. So before I step down, we've already issued probably the first security token offering guidelines in Asia, which is a way to securitize your token. And basically, Taiwan is the first jurisdiction to exempt the tokens from the security laws, so which is a very easy way to do business. And we welcome all of the startups to come to Taiwan to develop that.
Okay. I got a question. Maybe you can help clarify this. There's some discussion, at least in the cryptocurrency and cybersecurity space, Jason. How do you reconcile the black market and use of cryptocurrency in the context of the positive, more decentralized role of cryptocurrency? And I mean particular, a lot of times when things go where there's ransomware, a lot of people who study this, who looked at the amount of traffic of the volume that goes through these cryptocurrency, particularly like a Bitcoin, that is for illegal activity. How do you reconcile that with the positive aspects of that? Is it just a matter of just kind of a temporal issue because we're going through that phase and still early on that's a natural progression that it has to go through? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on the response that comes from people who says, well, a lot of the negative and trafficking and use of it for bad purposes.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we've now come to a stage where cryptocurrency must comply with regulations if this industry were to sustain and to have a long-term development traction. For the past 10 years, you go back to as early as when Bitcoin was created in 2008 by Satoshi Nakamoto. It's only nearly 10 years since this form of a currency or a form of transaction existed. So it's a very early in the development stage, but it's a imperative to involve regulators into discussions in terms of what role is this form of transaction plays in our own social and economic system. And it is no doubt that people are trading coins, Bitcoins, Ethereums, and other forms of coins, and people are investing in the coins that are being issued by companies. And there's a market cap of over 100 billion worth of Bitcoin right now being traded, and it's heavily marketed and also monitored around the world. And so right now, as I would pinpoint that Libra play a very crucial role in this. When Libra first came out last year, it shocked the entire I think community that basically two implications. One is that crypto might eventually go mainstream with Libra, but secondly, people are also afraid that Facebook might turn it into a super nation with its over 2 billion users trying to dominate the new e-payment, e-transaction space. But now with their Libra 2.0, I think they are trying to educate the government that you have to have a diversification strategy with your fiat currency, and they are now proposing a one-to-one stablecoin strategy with governments, and I am still wait and see whether this will work. But countries that are more progressive, like China, is now developing their own digital currency. It's called DCEP, decentralized payment system, which is basically their own central bank digital currency, which is used for financing their One Belt, One Road initiative. And essentially, they are trying to decouple renminbi with US dollars. And this is, again, very sensitive in terms of geopolitics and how US and China are essentially competing with each other to be the global power. So I would say we are cautious, but we are optimistic that cryptocurrency will be brought under the umbrella of the regulations. And one last point I will make is that in November 2018, I amended the Anti-Money Laundering Act, Article 5, to incorporate cryptocurrency into anti-money laundering law. So which already gave the foundation for the authorities to come up with mechanism to monitor the illegal and illegitimate actions in this field. So hopefully, when the compliances are ready and when the industries working with government actively, and we will see a much brighter and also just path in this.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have a few minutes left here. I want to be mindful of your time, Jason. I know you got the whole day ahead of you. I wanted to end with maybe 2 points. One, talking very briefly about Taiwan vis-a-vis its region, particularly in the context of cybersecurity. I mean, you all have a very historical relationship with mainland China, which, let's just put it lightly. And so that gives you a very different insight into the threat landscape of Northeast Asia. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. And I always like to talk about that as a counterposition to Japan, for example, that has a very different experience when it comes to cybersecurity and understanding and appreciating the risk. Before you came on, we had Kenzo Fujisue, who's a member of the Japanese parliament. And his clarion call was, we need more people to really help elevate the consciousness of cybersecurity, to truly make the right type of investments and to get people to think about it critically. Taiwan, it seems like, is very uniquely different in that. Could you talk a little bit about cybersecurity in the context of Taiwan, maybe the government's initiatives that it's taken, how it views cybersecurity and that's importance?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. We have long been um, um, on the forefront of cybersecurity. Even going way back in the 1950s when U.S. troops were still stationed in Taiwan. They've built radars and the satellites transmission stations in Taiwan, which is not far from where I live on the top of the mountain. And today's cybersecurity is obviously very different. They are not just picking signals from the satellite transmissions, but it happens on the fingertips of every citizen behind the computer and their cell phone. And this impacts far beyond on the military level. It works on it impacts on your political arena, and it infiltrates how you perceive the world and how you conduct your businesses. So in last year's election, we particularly worked with the U.S. government quite a bit, and I set up what I call an Indo-Pacific Cybersecurity Alliance, which is essentially an initiative calling for IT ministers in the Indo-Pacific region. Indo-Pacific means Indonesia and the Pacific region to work together, and we help them train their cybersecurity personnel. And what we are doing is to build Taiwan as a cybersecurity training ground with our AI facilities and our IT network. We are hoping to create a environment where countries in the future may be undermined with the cybersecurity attacks and threats, that they will be prepared to take on such a difficult challenges. So the like I said, this is a war that we wage not just on the healthcare front, and what we are dealing with is something that will reverberate for a long time to go. And so companies must act together and to put cybersecurity as their top line agenda, whether you are not in the government or in the private sector or you're individual. I think everything that is out there, I think, is all subject to vulnerability and attacks. And I also foresee that we will be start using more encrypted and protected apps and messenger communicators and for that sort of things. So governments, for the all the reasons should really set up an example, because otherwise we will never learn from this mistake. We will just repeating ourselves in the future when something like that happen again.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jason, for that. So I think we're at the top of the hour. It's 10 a.m. over there in Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I also have a hard stop at 10, so thank you.
Perfect. Yeah. So thank you, Jason, and the global community that we have here listening live stream. Thanks you, and they were actually very impressed with the presentation. So to all of you, please do reach out to us, myself, Claire, or Jason, because I think you'll be a great ally for this type of work that he's working on. So thank you again, Jason. Have a good rest of the day.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I'm happy to share my slides with you all if you need it. Okay. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.